I don't know if we want to. There's probably more direct things. Other people want to.
What time is it?
It is now 3:16. So we got about maybe 15
half an
minutes.
hour.
Yeah.
Actually.
Oh,
Yep.
half an hour. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. We have plenty of
Um,
time.
And
We
I
can
have
talk
a
about
question to
student
add in
universe
at some
forever.
point too, but I'll sneak myself after a few others. But Skirt, do you?
Yeah. I was thinking what you said about like explaining stuff to your kid, and I heard this quote from Rebecca Sugar a little while ago that I thought was like relevant and possibly of interesting discussion, where someone sort of asks her about discussing like mature adult themes on the show. And she says, as a crew, we're always working towards making the show we wanted as children. A lot of us on the crew are not straight and are not white, and these topics didn't seem like adult topics to us because they were part of our experience growing up. And I thought that was
Yeah, and that's one of the things I really love about Steven Universe, because it does give me a chance to talk about these topics to my son, and and we have questions, and oh gosh, the whole melding of the creation of Stevani, we had a huge discussion about it, and it was like, I get to talk to my son about these things, and it's awesome, so yeah, I love the show.
There was a suit in the back.
Yeah, so there seems to be divided opinions about whether fusion represents, what kind of relationship a fusion actually is, and like if it's sexual or if it's not. Like in Stefani's case, it seems to be more about friendship than just like platonic love. And then of course it goes to the whole possibly trans thing. But then with the Garnet fusion, they're totally romantic, obviously, and then does that represent sexuality or not? And then if fusion is sexuality, we're gonna grapple with the question of, did Pearl rape Garnet? In that one episode where she tricked her.
Took me a second to realize which episode you were talking about.
Is that the performance episode?
It's the episode where she's
Sardonyx.
remaking
Sardonyx,
the
yes.
tower so that Garnet may fuse with her
Oh,
over and over.
I was thinking of Rose for some reason.
I think it's a really, I think that fusion represents all those things, and I think the reason Garnet is able to stay together as long as she is because they are this sort of idealized romantic couple. Most of the other fusions can't stay together that long, even if they attempt it, because they eventually start to argue. So I don't know if I would, I mean, it's hard to put like a sexual assault sort of thing on that because it's not, I don't think fusion is just a sexual thing because they do it, I mean, they all three fuse to pretend to be Steven's mom. Like there's a consent thing happening there, for sure. Like there's for sure a consent thing. Yeah, I have nothing more on that, but I will be thinking about that, thank you. Like, I hadn't thought about it that way.
I think there definitely was, we can definitely agree there was a broken trust.
Yeah.
Betrayal. Yeah, there was a betrayal that was portrayed there. And yeah, the fact that Pearl did trick Garnet into doing that, it seemed to be more of a relational thing than anything. Cause
I think particularly because Pearl knows how Garnet feels about fusion.
yes. Yeah, so, and it was very interesting, like a few episodes later, Pearl actually opens up on the reason why that she did it, and she's like, I did it because when we see you, we want to be just, we want to have that same level of, that relationship that you have, and you do it so effortlessly. And poor Pearl, and the fact that she opens herself and finally speaks the truth of why she would do such a thing, and that Garnet say, okay, I understand, and then they fuse to get themselves out of the trap. It's like, okay, I understand it. So for me, the fusion has always been more relational in that regard, and again, there's different versions and different types of relationships, but yeah. So.
I guess if I read that way is because there's the moment where Jasper like attacks Garnet and like with that weird I don't know if it's a magnet or something like that, but it just totally like violates her, and she splits into two, as we, and the same thing happened when Pearl did that.
Yeah.
So it was clearly like a gross violation. It wasn't just like a betrayal, like, oh, I hurt your feelings or I lied to you. But she violated her in a way that made her split that into, she disrupted the relationship.
Jasper's weapon, it didn't just split up the fusion, it destabilized the gem and caused them both to retreat into their gems. It does that to every gem it touches. It's
right.
it's not just a fusion breaker thing.
It was a weapon, right? So so the same thing happened when Pearl did what she did. It's like that was an attack, not just a betrayal.
Well, and I don't even know if that actually happened. It was more Ruby and Sapphire having conflict within themselves to the point that they actually split apart. So, and both of them were disgusted by Pearl's actions, but it was more how they both dealt with the discussion that caused them to split.
Sorry, any more comments?
Nope.
Who was that?
Black T-shirt. Did you still have a question?
I wanted to respond to
Oh,
the
sure.
thing. This is mostly speaking as someone who apparently Rebecca Sugar has a camera in my house because I am Ruby and my wife is Sapphire. I got calls from friends after the episode where they split apart and have that fight because they're like, apparently you're on TV, and we're like, yes, that's how we fight. I really saw that the dissolution of that, because when Jasper says it's a conversation, that's what marriage is. Marriage is a conversation. It's an ongoing conversation. And sometimes you have large arguments within that conversation. And that's what that splitting is. That splitting is two people that love each other, but they're gonna fight. They're gonna really, really fight right now because they both need to talk about a thing that they disagree on how to deal with. So it's an interruption of the conversation, which is a violation. You are getting in between two people who are in this constant conversation, this constant, very permanent relationship. So it's, I think it's a consent thing rather than a weapon thing. That's what I'm kind of saying. So, violation of trust, consent, yes.
Yes.
I'm seeing 3 hands. We'll start over there. Yeah.
Hi. I wanted to go back to gender a little bit and talk about how, so there's more than one level of how you can think about gender. There's gender as an identity, but also gender as a performance. And I think it's really interesting because with like Sadie's song and there's other times when Steven is not completely concerned about gender as a performance.
Yeah.
And I just think that's interesting also when you're talking about the gems, how much of their gender is identity and how much is performance. Because in a way I think a lot of why we see them as women is about their performance rather than their identity.
Any comments?
Yes.
We can keep. There were some other hands. I think red shirt, and then we'll do mystery machine next.
So we have these gems who are clearly aliens, but I think we're leaving the scariest alien alone. What's Onion's deal?
Let's see.
Onion and his father.
Yeah.
Onion's a yellow diamond.
That was a great fan theory for a while until we met Yellow Diamond.
Well, on Nerdgasm Nor, we had a huge episode about Steven Universe, and we talked about Onion and his creepy ways. And he grows up to be, what was the doctor who eats people? The show,
Cannibal.
Yeah, Cannibal. Cannibal. It seems like that might be his course.
I don't. I sort of like Onion. Not in most episodes. But as in the episode where we go to their house, I think that there are weird things like that mouse. Like just opening.
But survived. How did the mouse?
It's best not to ask these questions because they lead to dark thoughts. But I think that in that thing, you sort of see that Onion is very different and also sort of lonely. And I think Onion has been raised by a very free-spirited mother and a father that's not there all the time, and a brother who's more interested in DJing. And Onion has sort of half brother, yes, because his father was Marty, Greg's manager. But I really think Onion has sort of found his own way to have fun, and it's odd and scary to the rest of us. But he's like, he's having a good time. Like when he destroys the food, and Steven's just like, "Why do you hate food?" And I felt that because I was like, "What are you doing? That is delicious food. You don't destroy it."
Yeah.
But Onion sort of is like, he's almost like, he almost seems younger than his representation. He's almost childlike in a lot of ways. Like the fun destructiveness of this, like the making the guys that like filled the whole town. Like there's no idea of consequences or why this will be bad or like maybe someone will be mad. He's just like having a good time. Like, and damn the consequences, which feels very like young to me.
He's not drawn as human.
No.
He doesn't have ears.
Well, I wonder if some of the gem damage caused mutations in the world. Like, completely seriously, because it's not, Onion's father is odd too. Yellowtail is not completely human either. And he can communicate with Onion in their odd little language that the rest of us don't understand. So it's almost like I wonder if Yellowtail, we hear that the gems were destroying Earth, but we don't really get all the ramifications of like what they were like. Sure, they were leaching stuff out of the ground, and that was destroying Earth itself. But I can't help but wonder if some of their other things had effects on humans that lived in certain regions that are still human, but are a little more variant now.
I had sort of assumed that in a world where there's one alien race, you can have lots.
That's true.
Giant strawberries.
Mystery Machine.
Yeah, so to go back to Sinister Rose Quartz and Bad Polly Pearl,
Oh,
I kind of wonder how they're related, because Rose has clearly allowed Pearl to be this codependent person for millennia, and how does that relate to how Pearl relates to everyone else and to the world?
I have a dislike of Pearl sometimes. But she seems to be kind of the one who's more connected to Homeworld than the others, and reveres it still in some sort of way, as opposed to Earth. Like, she's been for Earth for thousands of years, but she still is like, I don't really care that much about what happens here. I'm really just here because of Rose Quartz.
And do we actually know Rose Quartz's role?
There are theories, but we don't know.
Okay.
There's a theory that she's part of Pink Diamond, that she used to be Pink Diamond. I personally think that the Rose Pearl thing is because Rose doesn't view Pearl as a completely free will being. We know pearls are mass produced, and as much as Rose is fighting for the freedom of the planet, I don't really think she views Pearl in the same way that she ends up viewing Garnet or Amethyst. She obviously cares for Pearl, but it's sort of like how I'm reading it, again, I statements, is it's very like, yeah, you should be worshiping me. You should be protecting me. You should be doing these things. I love that you're doing it, I appreciate it, but yeah, that's what you should be doing. Like, the fact that when you see the visual of Pearl die, well, not dying,
Getting
on
the
poofed
battlefield
over and over. And then when you think about, this is actually something I want to bring up, when you think about the relative power levels of the crystal gems, none of them are that powerful. Look at what Lapis can do. Lapis is not even a warrior gem, and Lapis took them all out and stole the ocean in like 5 seconds. They're not very powerful gems. I have the feeling that Rose, because we know that quartz are warriors, was the most powerful of all of them. So that follows that she really didn't need Pearl to protect her that often. When you watch the flashback to the answer, Rose takes out a 3-merged ruby with just a smirk and a move. Like, Rose is a powerful warrior. But I think that she viewed Pearl as like almost a servant class. Like, she was fighting for Earth. She wasn't fighting for revolution of the class system on Homeworld.
Huh.
She was fine with that all along.
A bunch of hands right now. I do know that Cloud Dress has been raising their hand a lot, so.
Thank you. Actually, that discussion sort of like, I was going to ask a different question, and now I'm just like, ooh. It's really interesting to have this, to think about, like, how the gems have been coded with, like, have internalized the whole homeworld hierarchy. And then I think one of the reasons that, like, what's so exciting about Steven being the leader is because he's so outside of that hierarchy and ignores it and brings in Peridot and Lapis and all of these people that they wouldn't consider. It's really interesting how the center of them developing their own culture is sort of Steven, because in the flashbacks with Rose is clearly like, she loves humans, but she doesn't get them. Or at least, like, until Greg, I don't think she really sees eye to eye with humans, and maybe that's sort of like, it's interesting because, like you said, she's fighting for Earth, but maybe she doesn't really fight for humans until she